we would consider that. We'll end the evening with some closing remarks from each candidate and from myself as moderator. This is a very important election. Many might have preferred for it to be held within the normal time frame with an election during the spring of 2026. It would have allowed for a longer period of preparation for people involved and for more amenable conditions for campaigning. It would have eliminated the excessive cost of a rushed election out of sequence with the normal pattern. With this compressed time frame, Elections Ontario is only able to offer 3 days of advance polling. Here in Walkerton, that starts tomorrow, 3 days of advance polling at the Legion. And this is down from the usual 12 in previous recent elections. The issues facing all of us in this election are huge, and many of us are looking either to affirm our previous support or to consider changing our vote to the best alternative. We hope that this evening will help you to get some of the information you personally want to inform your vote. Your ability to participate in a free and fair election in a democratic society is a blessing that can be too easily taken for granted. We know that in the previous election, voter turnout was the lowest ever. The party that won really only had the support of 18% of the voting public, yet with the low turnout, they were able to turn that into a majority government. As we delve into the topic of healthcare this evening, we will see how that has affected our lives, our families, and our communities. It is imperative this time that we avoid the low turnout that has led to some of the problems we will discuss here. So if you take one message from tonight, please let it be the imperative to vote. If you hear polls sending out figures that make it seem like the election is already won by the ruling party, you may think there's no point in voting. They've already won it. We had the same experience last time, a slew of coverage in the media suggesting it was game over, the result was predetermined, and your individual vote would not matter. I see it beginning to happen again this time. And I say, poppycock. I have worked in the polls in many elections, and I can tell you it ain't over till it's over. So the most important thing that everyone can do is vote, vote, vote. Vote like your life depends on it, because some of the information you'll hear tonight will show you that it just may depend on it. Your life, your family's life, the life of your community. Let's move from the lowest turnout ever to the strongest. When you go to vote, take a friend. Take 2 friends. Take your neighbor. Take your grandmother. Take your son, your daughter. Offer to drive others to the polls. If you can vote in the advance poll, that's a very good idea. It avoids the risk of being snowed out or snowed under or blown away should the weather gods be as unkind to us on February 27th as they were this week. You will have already voted, and you can relax if you see warnings on the Weather Channel. This evening, we expect to have a civil and calm discussion about the issue of health care in this election. Please be advised we're not prepared to tolerate any antisocial behaviors, no name-calling, shouting, or interrupting speakers. And we are a one-topic meeting, healthcare. I am sure we can conduct this meeting in a peaceful manner. I would now like to introduce Councillor Gregory McLean to offer some words from the municipality.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Walkerton and the lovely Victoria Jubilee Hall. Raise your hand if this is your first time being in this building. Okay, not too many, but that's great. Well, welcome. We are so pleased that you've chosen this venue in Walkerton, historical gem, and hosting the All Candidates meeting tonight. And certainly better weather for everyone driving, better in the last 2 days, so we're glad that you're here. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention. First of all, this evening's event is an important one in the life of a democracy. The ability to ask questions of the candidates, the debate of ideas, and of course the final piece, which is you getting to vote. It's a hallmark of Western democracy, and we need to continue to do that, because certainly in this current climate, we know that around the world that the democratic rights are being eroded. So I think it's very, very important that we're part of that tonight. And certainly it's your opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions, and better understand their positions, specifically on the issue of healthcare in Ontario and the vision for the next 2 to 4 years. I'd like to thank the organizers tonight for having everyone here, certainly the candidates for driving this way. I know you've been busy in the last couple of weeks, and certainly you for showing up here tonight. So I hope that good luck, and I hope that you have a great evening.
Thank you very much, Greg. Okay, I'm going to give a very brief introduction of each candidate, and they will have a few minutes for some opening remarks. And we're going to start with Ian Burbidge to my left, and he's with the Liberal Party.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to everybody involved in bringing this debate together. Thank you for not being scared off by the weather and allowing it to go ahead. And thanks to all of you for coming out. I just heard this little joke the other day, and since she mentioned the tariffs and all of that threat, do you know the difference between a Canadian and American? The Canadian knows the difference. Okay. So that is a bit of an introduction. I like to tell dad jokes. I'm a small town guy. I grew up in Port Dover and Simcoe, Ontario, on the shores of Lake Erie, before moving up to the shores of Lake Huron. I actually spent my university years on the shores of Lake Ontario. So a small town, Great Lake kind of guy. I came to Kincardine to teach music and math, and I taught there from 1983 to about 2001, when I decided to move up the road to Port Elgin. I've lived near Port Elgin since then, and I'm a proud union member. I am still an occasional teacher, and I actually had to take a bit of time out of the campaign because we're working on some union business, and it was impossible to find a meeting outside of the election time. So I'm happy to do that. I find that what happens to me is people say, you know, this job really needs to be done. Who can we get to do it? For this election, I spent a fair bit of time talking to some very talented people, and for one reason or another, each of them found some compelling reason why this wasn't the time for them. And suddenly it came to me, it's the time for me. So that's how I ended up here today, and I have been very excited about the process of getting out and meeting people and hearing their concerns and their dreams. And I look forward to talking to you and listening to your dreams, and I hope that I get to continue to do that after February 27th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Beside Ian, we have Bruce Eisen. He's with the Ontario Alliance Party, and he'll do his introductory remarks.
Okay. First of all, I think the newspaper got me wrong. I am not a dairy farmer. I used to be on a dairy farm. There's a little bit of a difference. I work for the Amish, so I stack lumber. It'll be halfway between, well, Wingham and Lucknow, so it's at Whitechurch. Is the mic on?
Yes. Bring it closer to your mouth.
Okay. Right. So, I don't think there's really much to know. I've been stacking lumber for about 10 years, trying to get a side hustle with George Hahohoi, who lives in Dungannon, trying to build Dutch structures. You'll probably find that south of 21 and Godrich. And I guess in terms of why I'm here, well, I don't know. I think we just need a change in our economy. That's the gist. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Beside Bruce, we have Nick McGregor, and Nick is running as the candidate for the NDP.
All right, hi everyone. Thank you all for coming tonight. I really appreciate everyone coming and making it out in this weather. Thank you for everyone for organizing this. It's very important for me, especially to talk about healthcare. Some information about me. I grew up in Clinton. I was born and raised there at the Clinton Hospital. I was born there. And I currently teach as a high school geography and history teacher just in Goderich. Now, for me, talking about this meeting, it isn't just about politics. It's the people that I care about. Because I'm a teacher, I see firsthand the toll that healthcare cuts and shortages have taken on our families here. Whether it's people struggling to get mental health support or find a family doctor, I've seen how hard it is for people to get the care they need when they need it. In our small communities, for example, like Clinton and Wingham this weekend, our emergency rooms are shutting down because they don't have enough healthcare workers. In Walkerton, we all seen the news stories and we've all seen the line of people just hoping to get a family doctor. This is a crisis, and it's personal to me because it affects my friends, my neighbors, and my own family. We need a government that listens to the people, that puts patients first and communities first. Myself and the Ontario NDP have a plan to hire more healthcare workers, fully fund our hospitals, and keep our emergency rooms open. I will work to make sure that no one in Huron Bruce has to drive for hours just to see a doctor. And we will fight to keep healthcare public because it should be accessible to everyone, not just those who can afford to pay. I'm running because of healthcare cuts. That is what drove me. And I'm fighting for better healthcare for all of us because I believe we can and must do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And last but not least, we have Matthew Van Ankem, who is at the far end, and he is running for the Green Party.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out, and thank you, Grey Bruce Health Coalition, for hosting and outlining the important direction we should be heading in. Thank you, audience, for making the effort to come out, and hopefully you are rewarded with enough enlightenment or foolishness to keep you coming back. Doug Ford, I choose not to thank. I feel your self-preservation was the reason for calling this early and unnecessary election, and it outlines to me what you feel is most important, your party, and not the voters of Ontario. I represent the Green Party. I'm here to share good ideas to affect positive change, to speak what I feel strongest about. And is the proposed annexation of Canada a real thing? And is there a potential for loss of self-determination? Whatever the United States of the Orange Jesus is saying, it fills me with angst, but at the same time, I find it hard to take what Trump says seriously. A consumer-driven response is an excellent first step, but whatever the American president is willing to do, we need to be ready with a unified response. When trying to make sense of what is going down in the States, I try to watch the entire speech, and whether it's Musk or J.D. Vance, I have difficulty watching more than 2 or 3 minutes of Trump. I even dislike saying his name. But I feel if you watch the whole speech and you can get the actual gist of it and make an opinion from that, and I ask you to share what feels most important to you, and together we develop an expression of patriotism, which is what we need more than ever. This is my second go-around representing the Green Party in Huron Bruce. I like the newness of the party. I like its idealism, its foundation, and support for affordable housing. And I like its clear stance on the absolute preservation of prime ag land. And I'm a party member, but I'm more of a farmer from Howick Township. I enjoy what I do and seeing its success every day. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Matthew. Just before I go on, just had a note from the desk here at the front. If you hear something about healthcare that you're wanting to ask another question, you can come right up to the desk here and write out your question, and they'll help you out with that. So, Lisa Thompson is not here this evening. But she did send a small written report, which I have agreed to read. Please accept my apology for being unable to join you this evening, but when I received your invitation on February 11th, I had already committed to 3 other activities in the riding. Growing up, Thompson meant being engaged in community, from participating in sports and music concerts to Sunday school and 4-H. Until I was a young teenager, I grew up with a municipal office in my home until a new office was built, because my mom served as clerk treasurer for my home municipality for 35 years in Huron County. With my dad, I gave out my first blue ribbon at the age of 14. In high school, I decided it would be an honor to be engaged in provincial politics. At a young age, I appreciated that good fiscal management enables important investments and that value drives me in all I do to this day. I am also proud to call my husband's homestead my home. That farm near Ambleside has been in his family for 124 years as of 2025. It's been an honor to serve as the MP for Huron-Bruce for the last 13 and a half years. During that time, I represented Ontario for 9 years on the Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians region and served as chair of 3 of those years. I was selected to represent my party and on numerous nonpartisan committees by the Speaker of the Legislature, and I was selected to mentor Ontario Legislature interns 8 times in 7 years. Since forming government in 2018, I have served as Ontario's Registrar General, and I've had a strong, respected voice on behalf of rural Ontario at the cabinet table. In the last 7 years, I've worked hard on local priorities and have brought well over $600 million to the riding in a variety of investments like infrastructure for safe roads, water towers, and water services for new homes, healthcare and hospices, new and redeveloped schools, and daycare spaces. The list goes on. But we have more to do. We have a plan to protect Ontario by building our economy, protecting workers, keeping competitive, cleaning up our streets, protecting our families and children, and delivering better care. I respectfully ask for your continued support. So that's a statement from Lisa Thompson. That being the case, I think we're ready to move on to our first question. So as I mentioned, the process will be that I will read the question, and then each of the 4 candidates will have a couple of minutes to answer to it. So first question, what would you do to ensure that small rural hospital services, including emergency departments, are protected? Would you ensure that no more local hospital services are downsized, closed, or otherwise shut down? And will you commit to reopening the closed services? So we're going to start with Bruce this time.
Right. So I think the problem is that we at first have parties that are more akin to being federalists, whereas the Ontario Alliance Party would be a sovereigntist party. So it would have the province at its own kind of domestic issues involving healthcare, education, environment, and energy, as well as civil law enforcement. But also the point being is that it would be where the taxes would go for the most part. A lot of the taxes that would be spent here by rural and Ontario would go to Toronto and Ottawa instead of us. And then with, I think, Quebec, they would get about $46 billion more per year going to their hospitals. So why the disproportion with the taxes, and why are they going to Ottawa and Toronto that's being overrepresented? I think if anything, enough is enough with them being overrepresented. They should go back to the rural areas with the taxes. Right. Sure, what else? Oh yeah, with the COVID workers, if anything, those that got hired, which was in Ontario, 1,665, because they didn't agree with the vaccination regulations. I think, if anything, they should be hired along with their missed tenure. That way they can also fill back the hospitals. It was also the same with Chesley workers, or, well, rather nurses at the Chesley Church. There were 6 of them, and they could have filled up the Durham staff. So I think that should be it for now. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And we'll go to Nick.
This is the biggest issue that drove me to want to run. Hospital closures affect us deeply in rural Ontario. I mean, my hospital is Clinton, and Clinton has not had an overnight ER in 5 years now, since 2019. Now, our party is very committed to ensuring that hospital funding and healthcare funding is applied with a rural lens. We're going to apply a rural lens because we know the cookie cutter solution of applying the same funding from a city to here does not cut it. Rural Ontarians are actually losing primary care providers at a rate of 12% a year, 4 times faster than that of a city. We know that we need to fund things in rural communities differently than we do in the cities. So we are committed to making sure that all emergency rooms stay open and that the funding is there for our healthcare providers to be hired and to be paid well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the next question, the next answer is from Matthew.
Rural communities are disproportionately feeling the effects of the healthcare crisis. Ontarians are losing primary care providers at a rate of 12% per year. That's 4 times faster than people in urban centers. Approximately 525,000 rural residents lack a primary care provider, leading to people lining up around the block in winter storms just to get onto the registration list for a family doctor. While the current government has abandoned rural communities, Ontario Greens will address the unique challenges they are facing. Here's how we'll do it. Increase provincial funding for rural hospitals and cut the local cost share for funding new hospitals in half. Expand scope of practice for community healthcare providers like nurses, nurse practitioners, and paramedics. Create a new and integrated framework to deploy healthcare providers more effectively in rural areas and to help shift demand from emergency rooms. Fix the staffing shortage by providing equal pay for nurses, doctors, and PSWs across all communities and healthcare settings in Ontario to increase capacity in rural and remote communities and compensate healthcare workers fairly for their travel to treat patients at home. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. And now Ian will respond.
Thank you. Healthcare is our #1 priority with the Ontario Liberal Party. We believe in a privately funded, single-payer, public, universal healthcare system in Ontario. Doug Ford promised that we would be able to access services with just our OHIP card and not a credit card. I don't understand then why so many of my friends and associates are telling me that they're having to pull out the credit card. I'm a teacher, and so I've had firsthand experience with what my union calls the privatization playbook. I'm also fairly old, so I actually was working as a teacher when John Snoblin said, we've got to create a crisis in education to bankrupt it so that we can privatize it. I don't know if he used the word privatize, but that's what he meant. So we're seeing it all again. We're seeing it in education, but we are definitely seeing it in healthcare. The privatization playbook, underfund, create a crisis, and then say the only solution is to privatize. That's not the only solution. We can do better than that. Ontario funds its healthcare at the lowest level of all the provinces by a significant margin. If those $200 bribes that you all got, or maybe haven't got yet, were put into healthcare, that would bring us from dead last all the way up to second last in the country. Doug Ford has underspent the health budget by $1.25 billion. That's billion with a B. Now, I didn't get to watch the leaders debate because I was in another debate on education, which Lisa Thompson also didn't attend. But I understand that Doug Ford was talking about how much money he had put into into healthcare. We put $1 billion here, we put $6 billion there. I just wonder, if he put all those billions in, why do we have such miserable results? Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, we're ready for question number 2. Communities are competing with each other to obtain the services of family doctors. It's a kind of Hunger Games competition. How would you or your party support rural remote or rural areas in attracting family physicians in an equitable way? So I think we'll start with Nick this time.
Okay, perfect. One of the great things about our party is that we are focused on making sure that you have that access to a family doctor everywhere. And there's a few different ways that we can do that by making doctors' jobs a little bit easier so that they can get more time with patients. Now, we want to recruit and support 3,500 new doctors across the province. Now, we need to make sure that's spread out evenly. And one of the things is we need to make sure that our doctors we have 13,000 internationally trained doctors in Ontario that are ready to work, but they just don't have the accreditation by our standards. So we just need to make sure that they are given the ability to get that accreditation. Now, we also want to increase residency spots province-wide. But the part of it is that the reason that rural communities struggle to get doctors and healthcare workers is because oftentimes we lack other services that have been cut by the government. Oftentimes our property taxes are going through the roof because the provincial government is downloading services onto each municipality. Things like ambulances, things like roads and highways. It's causing your bills to go up, and we're getting less back for what we're paying. And most people don't want to move to an area that don't have a full-time hospital. We need to make sure that our hospitals in rural areas are funded enough so that they can stay over time or stay open full time and have the equipment that these trained doctors want to use. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. We'll go to Matthew next.
We need to hire more nurses to keep our ERs open, and we need to find new ways to attract doctors to rural areas. How do we make doctors and nurses' lives better, and how do we allow them to do as much as they can to help patients? How do we avoid burnout in hospital employees? I believe the best resource against burnout is self-direction, accomplishing your goals and being successful in what you think you're meant to do. The crisis came to a head during the COVID-19 pandemic, and many frontline healthcare workers burnt out due to poor working conditions and low pay, with many leaving the profession entirely. We need to care for the people who care for us. The quality of working conditions directly impacts the quality of care you receive as a patient. Investing in our healthcare workers means shorter lines in the ER, more family doctors, and better treatment for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Now we'll hear from Ian.
Yeah, so the central plank in our policy is that we will get every citizen of Ontario access to publicly funded primary care, and we will do that in your community, and we will do it in the next 4 years. Now, that is a huge task. Sometimes that gets shortened to we're going to get everybody a family doctor, but I want to be clear that our focus is on health teams, not just doctors. Doctors, of course. How are we going to do that? We are going to accelerate the rate at which we can accredit internationally trained doctors. We're going to be opening 2 medical schools and increasing spaces in others to get doctors trained. We're going to be encouraging doctors to step up to the process of helping to get new doctors online. And we're going to be attracting medical professionals of all types back to the profession. Some have left for various reasons. Some have gone to the States. We're going to be really encouraging them in these troubled times to come back to us. We're going to do that through a variety of means, one of which is to respect collective bargaining rights. And we're not going to do punitive legislation like Bill 124. We are going to make sure that all of our healthcare workers make at least a living wage. And we are going to, I think I actually covered most of the ways that we're going to do that, sorry. I remembered, we're going to encourage those people to settle in rural and remote areas. Obviously, if we want a family health team for you in your community, we need those people everywhere, including in our small towns and villages and all over the province. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Just a little bit of information that might be useful in considering that last question. We know that you had an interesting time recently with people trying to get rostered for Dr. Curry's practice and for his wife's when she moves up here. And people waited in a very snowy, very cold conditions in the Legion parking lot. And 1,000 people did get rostered. And that's great. That's what we're fighting for, is good health care for everybody. The other part of the question, though, is before that day, Grey and Bruce counties had 45,000 people without a family physician. And the day after, they still had 44,000. So, we congratulate those people. We're so happy for you, but we've got a lot of work to do. I'll move to the next question. What will you do to improve access?
Bruce hasn't answered yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce. Oh, my God. I have a brother named Bruce, and I'm just so used to interrupting him. I'm so sorry. You go ahead, please. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, well, I don't think the accreditation would be fast enough. I think we've already been through the overall vaccine. There are many doctors that have been laid off throughout the varying provinces. Ontario, for example, as I stated before, would be 1,665. Ottawa would have been like 318 doctors laid off. And then if you have Ontario, like Unity Health, St. Joseph's Health Center, St. Michael's, and Toronto would have been 171. So I would say hire back the people that have been laid off during the vaccine, make sure they get paid back their tenure for the time that they missed. Also, I think in terms of just make it more akin to a local hospital with local levels, parents, kids, municipal levels. Vote in at a local level in terms of healthcare. That way it's not done by government, so it's not run by government or the trustees, so there's no money laundering. We've already been through it where the taxes have been, properly misrepresented, where Ottawa and Toronto get a lot more for their taxes than we do. We know that Quebec gets like at least 46 billion more. We've already been through that. So then we're going to go with public essential care. So that's usually the operations that are around like 50% plus one. So that's often how it's done. Whereas the private care would be anything that's less than 50%. We'd make it more into a private hospital. That's how we would operate. Thanks.
With my apologies again, Bruce. The next question is, what will you do to improve access to mental health care in rural Ontario? And we're going to start with Matt this time.
The crisis of caring extends into Ontario's healthcare system. What was once a standard setter for public health care globally is now a system on the brink of collapse. People used to be drawn to Ontario in part because of its world-class public health care system. Now the opposite is true. People are lining up around the block overnight just to register for a family doctor. Emergency departments are overflowing or even closed. Hallway health care, which was supposed to be a top priority for the current government, has only gotten worse after its 7 years in office. Up 25% from June 2018. These challenges are heightened in rural communities, which are losing primary care providers at 4 times the rate of urban centers. Unfortunately, the current provincial government's response to the collapse of the healthcare system is to increase privatization, locking out the majority of Ontarians from receiving the care they need. Access to healthcare should not be tied to your income, full stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll go to Ian.
Yeah, so mental health is a huge issue. It's made more challenging by just the nature of the illness. And so we maybe need a unique approach to mental health. There are a few things that we think could help. One is to provide some different pathways into the mental health care system. But for sure, once you are, the mental health that you get in Ontario should also be covered by OHIP. It should be with your health card, not your credit card. And we mean that. So one of the things, and I'm an educator, so one of the things that we plan to do is to have wraparound services in the schools, which would include access to mental health care, but also a variety of professionals for special needs. It's such a big question because it ties into so many other policies, like the challenge of dealing with homelessness and other things like that. But I think our youth are especially affected, and so catching mental health problems in the schools and with youth is key, and then making sure that we have the staff available and properly trained staff who know how to get people into the mental health system and get them treated and make sure that their treatments are effective. That's all key. In addition, we need to be thinking about mental health not just in terms of healthcare, not just for the patients, but also for the staff. Stress and burnout are endemic in our system, partly due to underfunding and understaffing our hospitals and other healthcare things. So we need to make sure that we're also providing good mental health supports for our health professionals all across Ontario.
Thank you, Ian. We'll move to Bruce now.
All right, so on 2nd Street, there was a study conducted. I think it was research that over 10,000 Canadians had died during the COVID season from 2020 to 2021. And I would say that in terms of the overall vaccine thingamajig, like with all those regulations and stipulations, I don't think there was any need to fire the doctors. I think they just should have continued on as is. And to be honest, that would have been better than, this accreditation process, because then you already have more staff and doctors to begin with. And in terms of essential health care, that would be more like, okay, you would reduce the time in emerge, because in all the other things that don't, have to be essential and can be more in the private sector, you would actually, be able to go a little bit faster than doing the unnecessary things. And in terms of funding, well, we've already covered that. So, and then in terms of mental health, well, I think if anything, it's probably going to be diagnosed in school like first. And then if they're noted, then they can just note the doctors, and then, yeah, you have the health card more or less. And that'll be all.
Thank you. And now we'll finish this round with Nick.
Alrighty, so mental health is something both we have to face a lot at school, but also out in the community. One thing that we need to do, especially for our young folks, is invest in mental health care in schools. only 9% of schools in Ontario report they have regularly scheduled access to mental health and addiction specialists or nurses, and 46% of schools don't even have that at all, do not even have any access to that. We need to do better for that. We need to invest in staffing at a young age, because most times, especially in high school, this is where mental health problems emerge. You don't often see it when they're young. You often see it emerge in high school. Now, aside from that, we also have to focus on healthcare past that, right? Because high school, you only get to 19 and you're pretty much cut off to those services. So we want to make sure that we adequately fund the services that are already providing these mental health supports, like the Center for Mental Health and Addictions. Those sources are already doing a good job. They just need more money and more support to do it. And we need to make sure, yes, of course, make mental health a part of OHIP. Make mental health the same as healthcare, because it is the same. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, the next question that's up is, what is the role of the private sector in providing health care in Ontario? And I think we're going to start with Ian this time. Should have stuck well anyway.
That's an interesting question. I expect there is a place for the private sector, but our focus is definitely on single-payer, universal, public health care. So you should have access to all your medical necessities and the care that you need, whether it's home care, long-term care, hospital care, primary care. That should all be public. There are unnecessary procedures, and there will be a private role for private care there. I believe that it's also possible that there will be some other private services that can be accessed. But for example, right now, nursing agencies are using predatory recruiting, and they're not being regulated properly. So if there are private services, they need to be regulated. They need to be, they cannot be taking supplies, and they cannot be taking the people that we need out of the public system and using them so that some people who have enough money can jump the queue on their care. There is a role, but I would see it as a small role rather than the ever-increasing role that we've seen over the last 6 years or so.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Bruce.
Okay, so I would think that the public essential care would be operations of 50% or more. Anything that would be private care would be like 50% or less. It would be things that wouldn't need to go to emerge. And then the thing that would have to be through emerge would have to be essential care to make it go faster, more or less, so there's less of a wait time. In terms of, I think, private care, these people would have to be pretty much democratically elected, more or less, at local levels, parents, municipal levels, and voted in by local healthcare boards as well, not appointed by governments, so to speak. Yeah, and I think that's pretty well it. Sorry.
Thank you, Bruce. We'll move to Nick.
Now, does it work? No. I can just talk like this because I'm a teacher. The thing that I most consistently see is that privatization has eaten into our healthcare over and over again. And I'm sorry, I'm surprised to hear you say that sometimes, Ian, when you say full-time there's everything should be covered by OHIP because the Ontario Liberals first allowed the encroach of privatization into our public healthcare system by allowing for private clinics to start doing surgeries, things like cataract surgeries, hip replacements, all first started under the Liberal government. And things like lab services and other things that used to be covered by OHIP are no longer covered. So the most important thing is to make sure that we need to end the privatization of our healthcare and make sure that it's fully public, because every time we allow for some privatization, it eats away at our services, and every time we allow for some profit, it becomes exploitative of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And Matthew?
Well, I think it's pretty easy to see the example, the American example of where we shouldn't be going with as far as privatization. And I watched a podcast between Theo Vaughn and Bernie Sanders the other night, and they were talking about the American system. And the American system cost them something like $12,000 American per person, whereas the Canadian system costs us $9,000 Canadian per person. So, and we can easily see the results that we get and the fair deal for money, for value. And the situation with the privatization in the States is that the profits are eaten up by the insurance companies and the pharmaceuticals, and despite them spending that much more on their health system, they get so much less. So Doug Ford's privatization of Ontario's healthcare is deeply concerning, that they would lock out the majority of Ontarians from receiving the care they need. Access to healthcare should not be tied to your income or about whether you were born into a wealthy family or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question has to do with long-term care. Would you commit to ending for-profit long-term care and building the needed capacity in public nonprofit homes? What would you do to improve long-term care? And I think we're starting with Bruce this time.
Oh man, I'm going to sound like such a broken record. Ugh. I think it's very repetitive for me, more or less, because our focus is more on economy here. It's just more like, okay, make sure that the taxes go towards where they need to, and, Toronto and Ottawa had more than enough, so let's just get it back to Ontario, that we have more than enough money in our pockets. And then in terms of like economy, we're trying to go for a smart size economy that's necessary, and not trying to have like these federal expenditures that are just way over the top, so that people have a lot more money in their pockets. And that way, if there's kind of any need for like a service, maybe in healthcare, it could be provided for with people that have more money in their pockets. And so, yeah, I would say, long-term care would be here to stay for the Ontario Alliance Party.
Thank you. And Nick?
I think my answer is pretty clear. I don't think that we should have private long-term care. Private long-term care, over and over, we've seen the statistics that people get worse care in private long-term care situations. During the COVID-19 pandemic, more people died in private homes than they did in public homes, either public, nonprofit homes. Over and over, it is important for me that we take care of people, especially as they age, especially as they need extra care. And it's important that we make sure that we make it better by requiring things like 4 hours of care per day, hands-on per day. We need to make sure that there is adequate staffing and that the staffing is paid adequately for the jobs that they do, because I know both my mother, my sister, my grandmother all worked in long-term care homes. They never got the pay that they should get for the service that they do in caring and taking care of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And Matthew?
You shouldn't have to worry about whether your loved one is getting the care they need at the long-term care homes. Unfortunately, it's far too common for families across Ontario. All seniors in care homes deserve access to consistent, reliable care, healthy food, and to be close to loved ones. We will prioritize the well-being of residents in long-term care homes. Improve quality of care means improving quality of work for care providers to address burnout and increase retention among PSWs. We'll work hard to ensure LTC homes have the means to increase staffing levels and working conditions for care providers. Here's how we'll prioritize the well-being of residents in LTC homes and ensure they're receiving the quality of care they deserve. Pay fairly to retain staff so we can ensure 4 hours per day of care, legislate staffing, increase long-term care residents' access to occupational therapists and social workers, mandate continued professional development for staff on geriatric care, culturally sensitive care, and caring for students with dementia, and palliative and end-of-life care. We'll prioritize healthy, quality local food as an important component of resident well-being, and to ensure the right of residents to have accommodations made for themselves and their loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. Or Matthew, sorry, and we'll go to Ian next.
Thank you. So yeah, first of all, our priority is to make home care as accessible as possible for people for as long as it can be. But we know that there will be times when long-term care is necessary. And so we have committed to expanding the availability of beds in long-term care. We are going to do that by incentivizing buildings of community, not-for-profit long-term care run by municipalities. Doug Ford has been building private long-term care facilities, and I'm not interested in throwing people out in the snow, so those will exist for a while, but our priority is to, as Nick mentioned, the much better results, especially during COVID, for the not-for-profit and the community and municipality-run homes. We'll also end the coercive Bill 7 that this government introduced that is forcing seniors against their will into communities often far from home. We'll implement and report on the progress of all the recommendations from Ombudsperson Paul Dubé. He had a scathing report produced after COVID of just what happened in the long-term care. And there are a number of recommendations, and we will work at fulfilling those recommendations, and we will regularly report on the progress of that. Of course, one of the other things with long-term care is that when he took power, Doug Ford decided that you could trust those private long-term care facilities. You didn't need to inspect them. We will institute more inspections, stricter oversight on what's going on in long-term care, and we'll have better enforcement, and we will impose strict penalties on those that fail, including, if necessary, decertification.
Thank you, Ian. I personally come from a small rural community that no longer has any long-term care. So that touches close to home. Question number 6. So many people feel that the Ford government refuses to listen or hear the concerns of Ontarians about health care and education and so many other issues. How will you show your commitment to listening to citizens about these issues? And we'll start with Nick.
Well, for me, it's important to listen to people, right? It's just basic sense to listen to your constituents, and yet that's not something that we have always had here. We need to make sure that you guys, as constituents, are able to talk to and send letters and email the MPP who I hope is me, and who and actually get a response. So my commitment is that you will always get a response from me. You can email me right now. It's nick.mcgregor@ontariondp.ca, and I will respond to you. Don't worry. Say whatever you want. I will say thank you for letting me know. I will give my best response to you. Even if I don't know, I will tell you what my position is. I will tell you where I am on that and what I can learn from it. I think that's it.
Thank you, Nick. We'll go with Matt next.
Yeah, the back and forth that I've gotten from Lisa Thompson over the last 3 years has been mostly me sending something her way and nothing coming back. So that's my personal experience with that. I would like to talk about that I am torn about when I'm talking about the healthcare system, and part of me wants to be critical of it, that they're getting 25% of Canadians' tax dollars, and they're still asking for more. And the other part of me feels that there really isn't a better pot to put it in. Our life expectancy has increased by 16 years from 1950 to 2025, so we must be doing something right. We need to be proud of what we have. The Canadian healthcare system takes care of us. Cancer does not bankrupt us. Accidents don't make us choose between selling our house and our kids' college education. We are not the U.S. We are proud to be Canadian and make our own decisions and take care of who we are. We need to hire more nurses to keep our ERs open, and we need to find new ways to attract doctors to rural areas. My main idea on that one would be to upgrade one of the local marinas. I too enjoy sailboats, and it might bring the right person to the right job locally. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have Ian next.
Well, this will probably surprise you, but I've got to defend Lisa Thompson here for a second. I met a woman in Kincardine a couple of weeks ago, and she shared with me an email chain. She reached out to Lisa to see if she would be attending all candidates' nights, and Lisa did respond to her. There's my defense. Lisa said, yes, I'm a very, very busy person, but I will be attending 2 all candidates' nights. And the person who was sending this to me responded and said, well, I care a lot about healthcare. Will you be attending the healthcare debate in Walkerton? And then Lisa did respond one more time and said, no, I am attending the Federation of Agriculture Huron County debate and the Federation of Agriculture Bruce County debate. Now, we know that agriculture is a major industry in this riding, and people should be attending those debates. I think all of us probably, one of them was canceled, okay? We had no control of that. We would have been at both of those agriculture debates because that's important. But I wonder how she can think that agriculture is important, but not go to the healthcare debate or the education debate or the tourism and hospitality debate or the Federation of Labor debate. So, to get back to the actual question, yeah, listening's important. As I was driving here tonight, I was thinking, this is going to be so ironic because what I've really enjoyed in this campaign so far is getting out and meeting people and having conversations and listening to what they have to say. And tonight you're listening to us talk at you about what we want and what we will do for you. That's important. That's important. I know you need to know what's here and what we would do. But I want you to know that more than telling you our position on this or that thing, that my main thing is I want to represent you. I want to listen to you. I want to try to absorb your concerns, your problems, your hopes, what you think might be accomplished. All of those are good as well. And I want to try to see all angles of the problem, listen to many people, and then take that to Queen's Park for you. Sorry that I went over. I didn't see the signal.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I was too focused, I'm sorry.
She could use her whole arm. If
Yeah. I think she said polite.
Bruce? We'll hear from Bruce next.
I think you need a Canadian flag or a provincial flag if you're going for the minutes, instead of just waving your hand or finger. Provincial flag, yeah. Try to get one of those. Sorry. Okay, so in terms of a listening ear, right. I think the Ontario Alliance Party could go back to the DGR that happened in the South Bruce municipality vote. It was a split from 51% to about 49%, and we happened to be the only party that said, well, you know what, the vote is too close, so we shouldn't push for it, especially if you're going to be, environmentally friendly. Why on earth would you ever put it between the Greenock Swamp and the Teeswater River? Such a terrible idea. We had a better idea than that, so we rode up to the Saugeen Ojibwe Nations, and, well, they disavowed the DGR. So I think, if anything, we did listen to our constituents. So how does the Ontario Alliance Party listen? It focuses on the charter, it focuses on our own conscience, and it focuses on the constituents and our own principles. That's what we did. And that's what we did in South Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce. The next question is concerning healthcare workers. And quite an interesting aspect. Will you commit to nurse-to-patient staffing ratios in hospitals to address the nurse staffing crisis? Will you stop the for-profit staffing agencies? And I think we'll start with Matthew this time.
Ensuring everyone has access to a family doctor and the care they need starts with immediately hiring more doctors and healthcare workers, including nurses and PSWs. But it's not enough to just increase hiring. Hiring without improving working conditions and pay will result in a revolving door of overworked and underpaid healthcare professionals. This does not address the underlying shortage limiting patient access. Working conditions for healthcare workers have become dire, including Doug Ford's Bill 124, which froze wages for many workers. This crisis came to a head during the COVID-19 pandemic, and many frontline healthcare workers burnt out due to poor working conditions and low pay, with many people leaving the profession entirely. We will recruit 3,500 more doctors in Ontario through more medical school positions and more residency opportunities for international medical graduates, so that everyone has a primary care provider within 3 to 4 years. We'll work with primary care providers to dramatically decrease administrative demands on doctors and to move to electronic prescriptions to allow them to spend more time caring for patients. We'll pay healthcare workers fairly by harmonizing wages across the healthcare system to ensure retention of experienced staff and good community health supports. Ensure wages are equitable and internationally competitive for doctors, registered nurses, nurse practitioners, and across healthcare settings. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. We're just in the interest of time. We did have a question here about patient staffing ratios in hospitals, and so we'll just ask to stick to that comment. Ian, you would be next.
I'm sorry, but I'm not 100% sure if we have a policy that specifically says that there would be a ratio.
I think it's in negotiation now.
in negotiation.
Yeah, I think. I stand to be corrected.
So
Last I heard.
I believe in class size maximums, and I think that's basically the same idea. And so I believe that you need some way to make sure that you have enough caregivers to give care without being stressed and without being and to be able to do the job properly. There is nothing more stressful on somebody in a caring profession than wanting to do what you need to do. Caring, you want to care for that person, you want to give them the care they need, and when you can't do that, that is incredibly stressful. And we We don't want that for our workers. We want to make sure they're well paid. We want to make sure that they have the time to do their job, and we want to make sure that they have the tools and the time and the resources to do the job that they're there to do, and that is care for their patients.
Thank you. Bruce?
Oh dear. Yeah, I keep repeating myself, don't I, with all these questions pretty well? It's pretty well the same answer, isn't it? Oh dear. Yeah. So, as per usual, I think the Ontario Alliance wants to more or less hire back the people that, well, got fired during the COVID crisis, of course. So you get more people like that. And then, of course, the public essential core, and then the private sector, and then you're trying to, reduce more or less the taxes overall, trying to cut a good amount, and then you're trying to, I'm just digressing here, aren't I? Sorry. Yeah, I think I lost my train of thought. I don't know where it was. Apologize about this. Yeah, I don't know. I think I should apologize. I'm just going to move on.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to Nick then.
All right. I like the flag. Good. All right. So on nursing and staff patient ratios, it is important for our nurses to be able to do their job without being overburdened by too many patients. So the NDP, we have committed to establish and legislate safe nurse-to-patient ratios to make sure that patients can get the care they deserve and so that nurses are not overworked. And we want to do that in consultation with nurses across the province. Because we know, as I said before, not every place has the same needs. We want to make sure that in different areas, some areas might be able to take on more people, whereas some areas you cannot have as much care. One person, you might need 1-to-1, you might need 1-to-2 nurse to patient, right? You need to be able to make sure that you are getting the care each area specifically needs. And on the other side of that question is the private nursing companies that are draining our Ontario healthcare system. Of the hospitals in our riding, only, I believe, last time I checked, only one hospital was actually in the positive for their budgets in the last year because of these private for-profit nursing agencies that are costing the healthcare systems hundreds of millions of dollars per year. And because they come at a premium, but then they also, in these hospitals, work overtime. And that costs more and more to our budgets. We need to make sure that our hospitals staff are treated fairly and make sure that they are paid well, not just in hospitals, but our community nurses as well, because community nurses help keep people out of our emergency rooms and out of our hospitals as well. So we need to make sure they get wage parity as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. At one point in my career, I worked for WSIB, and I guess that last question touched a spot for me, because the question of ratios is also a question of physical safety for nurses. They need to have a workable number of people to work with, and they need safe working conditions. So just a thought. We're coming down to the last couple of questions. A lot of hospitals and medical services in rural Ontario depend on local volunteers. What incentives do you believe the province should offer such volunteers and to help recruit more volunteers? So I think we're going to start with Ian this time.
Well, I do some volunteering, and the incentive that I look for most is the satisfaction of being able to do something good for people that need it. I don't have a very good answer for you other than that. I think that the strongest kind of motivation is intrinsic motivation, and those people that volunteer, I believe, do it for the right reasons. I'm not sure that we should be meddling in that as a government.
And Bruce.
I have no idea what to say to this question. I don't know. I think if you're passionate about it, then go ahead and be a doctor. Like, whatever, man. You're not going to force somebody to do something that you don't want to do.
Thank you,
Leave it at
Bruce.
that.
And Nick.
So the one thing that I can think of that we have discussed a lot about is one of the things that keeps people healthy and keeps people in their homes longer, out of long-term care, is family members that love their family and provide caregiving services for free to their loved ones. So one of the things that the Ontario NDP want to do is we want to give a monthly caregiver benefit to those caring for a loved one at home. So that way, people are adequately helped, because it costs money and it costs time. You should be at least compensated in somewhat for not just caring for your loved one, but you're also saving the public purse money, right? By doing so. So a monthly caregiver benefit is the least we could do. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And Matthew?
I think there's such a quality potential for providing volunteers and let's say high school students who are interested in the health profession a chance to be exposed to a positive role model as they kind of engage with the hospitals and the LTCs, and they use that as an opportunity to grow as a student and as a kid. But I also think we need to ask ourselves what keeps us healthy, and is that eating a quality diet or limiting our exposure to fungicides and insecticides, mold, nasty dust, and petroleum fumes. Promoting a quality, nutrient-dense local food is very important as a farmer. And there is already a massive tax on cigarettes. Shouldn't we be taxing Doritos and donuts and packaged snacks with a 2-year shelf life? Maybe you should get a tax credit for staying within 15 pounds of your ideal weight, and maybe you should get a tax credit for being 3 years free of the ER. Thank you.
Thank you. So the last question for the evening that's been submitted is a biggie. This is one of the issues that we hear, I would almost say most about at the Grey Bruce Health Coalition. We get a lot of calls. What is your plan for home care in Ontario? And Bruce, are you? You can pass if you're not comfortable.
Yeah, no, I don't think we have a plan. I'm sorry. I'm just going to go next.
Nick? Nick will speak next.
Okay, so again, home care, one part of that is the caregiver benefit for those who are doing it for their families, because that is important. On the other side of that, we need to make sure that make it more affordable for seniors to make renovations that will help them age at home for longer by giving them credits for making those changes to their homes. On the other side, we need to make sure that we have more community nurses and community healthcare, because those doctors or those nurses and healthcare workers are keeping people in their homes and keeping them independent and keeping them healthy. And I know some of my friends actually are community nurses, and they are constantly looking for people to even do the work because they get taken out and taken to private providers or taken and working in the hospitals. They should get the same rate of pay as anyone else working as a nurse, providing the same services in healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew?
Aging in place should be an option for everyone who wants it, but it requires investing in the caregivers who provide quality care to make that a possibility. In addition to investing in home care workers, there needs to be a concerted effort to fix the shortage of home care medical supplies, which has left people, including palliative care patients, without critical items needed for their care. Here's how we'll make aging in place a reality for everyone who wants it. Support local communities to enable development of naturally occurring retirement communities with planning and project funding. Mandate that nurses and personal support workers are paid appropriately across workplaces and for the travel time between visits. Repeal laws that would prohibit or create barriers to co-housing and co-living. Increase funding for our community health sector to address the staffing crisis and to ensure timely, safe, and quality care. And increase supports for people who care for loved ones who are ill or elderly.
Thank you. And Ian, we're going to give you the last word here.
So, just before I start, you'll probably have noticed tonight that many of us have the same solutions for a lot of these problems, which makes me wonder why Lisa Thompson and Doug Ford haven't figured it out. Yeah, so we need to make, we have in our policy a guaranteed home care for seniors. If seniors want to stay at home and get their care at home, guaranteed. That does mean a lot of things you've already heard, making sure that we fund the renovations that they might need and the equipment that they might need. We need to make sure that it's needs-based, so whatever the patient needs, that's what they're going to get, either in the home or in the community. And we need to set up a set of standards, measured standards, that will be reported transparently. I think transparent reporting on all of these things so that you know what is going on is almost as important as anything else, because then you will be informed and you can make sure that it's being done and you can hold us to account. As you already heard, it's really important that we have wage parity between nurses and other healthcare workers who work in the hospital, work in long-term care homes, or work in home care. And I was speaking to a nurse, I don't know, a couple of months ago, before I even got into this, and she was telling me, I couldn't believe it, that they only get paid when they're in the home, not for travel time. And that does not make sense in Huron and Bruce. I can tell you that. So we have vowed that they will be paid for their travel time as well as the time that they are actually with the patient. We need to promote coordinated care. We need to set up a seamless communication system between the hospital and the community care and pharmacists and so on and so forth. And one of the things that can help to do that is to develop digital infrastructure so that we can exchange health information more easily. And finally, we want to drive innovation so that by reporting and looking at what's going on, as we find things that work well, we can enhance those.
Thank you. That was the last of our written questions. I think we may have a couple of minutes if someone wished to ask a question from the floor. Oh, we have a mic over here that would help you.
Anyway, you propose a lot of things that are going to cost money. Are you going to pay? Are you going to raise the tax rate or something that has to be sacrificed to pay for health care? Please answer. Don't pay the craft brewers.
Okay, we have an interesting question about finances and an interesting comment. I guess, let's see, we would, you up again, Bruce? Or?
Finally, a little finances. Great.
Okay.
All right, so we try to cut the capital gains tax, try to cut the carbon tax, because that's going to raise it by 90% in April again, so you try to get rid of all of that. And if you're buying oil or an oil filter, you'll notice that there will be an environmental tax as well, so cut those. There are roughly around 1,789 known taxes. Got to look into those and try to cut as many as we could. We are trying to get government to be as small and necessary and as compact as can be so that you don't have to spend too much. Because if you have necessarily, let's say, the service industry being at 74%, well, then guess what? Everybody that's making money towards a GDP has to then, through their taxes, try to help out the 74% that are subsisting off the people that are making a product. That's the whole entire point. You want an economy that's strong. You don't want too much in the service industry because then you're going to kill the economy. So try to make a strong economy first. Make sure you get money in your pockets. That's the whole point of this. That way, you have a lot of money, or perhaps even too much money, where you can give out to any type of area that is necessary.
You didn't ask the question. I asked how you going to pay for the extra things you wanted to tell you. Or you sacrifice another program?
You slash a lot of taxes because they're not going to help you. That tax rebate that you got from the carbon tax?
Taxes don't pay for the health care that you want.
Well, you can redirect where the taxes can go because let's say Quebec, for example, as a, they would have a sense of sovereignty with their own health care. They get 46 billion more than we do. Why is that? Can we request the same here? Why does Toronto and Ottawa get more? Why are they the ones that are always getting stuff and we're getting nothing? Why?
Thank you, Bruce. We'll go with Nick next, please.
One thing about government is they always seem to find the money somewhere. Doug Ford found money to spend $90 million on a spa in downtown Toronto. That's going to cost each of you guys $400 in your own taxes. He's thinking of funding a $100 billion plus tunnel under the 401, a fantasy tunnel. Now, we will always find the money somewhere. And the thing is, the Ford government has created the biggest government known in the province of Ontario. There are almost every single one of their MPs is either a minister or is an associate minister, which comes with a major pay bump. Easily way over, I believe last time I checked it was 118, 120,000, and then they get extra on top of that. So the thing is, we need to make a more efficient government that doesn't duplicate services and doesn't pay people to do to be the assistant secretary and the assistant minister. We don't need that. We need to have people who are doing their jobs efficiently with the money that we do have already. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Now we'll hear from Matthew.
We're borrowing money for what we want today. We're spending more than we earn. The more we do this, the worse our position gets. $9.8 billion deficit in 2024. I've always felt that Ontario is a rich province with lots of trade and production ability and infrastructure. So why do our elected leaders think it's a good idea to peel off $20 bills like they're lettuce leaves? Fiscal responsibility is acknowledging that budget deficits result in an increasing percentage of future dollars paid towards interest on debt. What Doug Ford promises today will be paid off by our kids. The point I'm trying to make is we need to be like good farmers and stock our barns right full of hay, because the 7 good years may have ended and the 7 bad might be ready to begin. You don't know how good you have it until you don't. I dislike hearing the parties scrambling on to make promises to spend billions on this and billions on that and what they feel is the best for Canadians. In return, we get more taxes, or our families are in a poor condition due to them having to pay interest on the loans we've taken out. Growing up, we always went to visit my parents and my grandparents in Drayton, and then on the way back, we got to stop in at Becker's, and the kids all got to pick one treat. So we either got a chocolate bar, or we got a bag of chips, or we got a pack of gum. And Dad, he'd buy a bag of Porkies because he liked Porkies. And anyway, the moral of the story is that we have to be the kid and only pick one item, and that item has to be hospitals over highways. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll hear from Ian next.
I'm really annoyed because Matt just stole my line. So yeah, as Nick mentioned, Doug Ford wants to spend, he's got $100 billion to spend on a tunnel. The NDP are also talking about spending tens of billions of dollars to buy a highway. They want to buy the 407 back. And yeah, the spa. What about the $2 billion that Doug Ford spent because he was impatient and couldn't wait a year to put the booze in the corner stores? But on top of that, right now we have in this riding 9,000 people at least without primary care. If you're not getting primary care, you are going to be costing the system a lot more by going to an emergency room for your care, or worse yet, because your conditions are going to be much worse when we get to see them. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and I'm enough of a mathematician to say like that's 16 times as good, right? So we can save money by catching health problems early instead of waiting until they're severe. Also, if we're operating, we mentioned the nurse agencies where, in fact, they're paying agency nurses more than they're paying the staff that they have in the hospitals. That's crazy. If you're doing things for profit, somebody's making a profit. That means more money is being spent, and the healthcare system in the United States is a good example of that. There's people taking bucks all the way along the system, and that's why they pay 1 1/3 times as much at least per person as we do. So there's money to be saved by spending wisely, and wisely doesn't always mean spending the least. Sometimes it means spending smart, and I think spending on quality healthcare professionals to look after us. I think spending on the public sector system that we have, where we can use the economies of scale and things to make sure our prices are the lowest possible. I think all of those go to a very efficient and effective system, and that's how we can pay for some of these things.
Thank you, Ian. It is, I don't know how many of us have looked into this, but a lot of the profit that is skimmed off the top of our healthcare system is going to large investors in the American healthcare industry. That's what they call it, an industry. And so our money is crossing the border, and perhaps that might be another thing that, if that wasn't happening, maybe we would have more money for our own system. Is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question? Carrie?
When I was volunteering up at HS Laker, it was apparent that the people who are homeless, the people who have drug addictions, there's no facility anywhere in Grey Bruce for these people to go to get the help they need. So there's a direct correlation between the homelessness and these encampments and these people out starving to death and mental health. Since there is no facility in Bruce or Grey, I think there might be one in Old Sound now, a school they just recently converted to about 6 pence. I'm going to assume that other rural areas are all in this same boat. So my question is, do any of your parties have an agenda to actually build some kind of a facility to aid these people? Indirectly, these people, the mental health, drug addiction.
Okay, thank you, Terry. I'm going to go with Bruce first. No? You can decline if you're not in.
I think it was my turn to go first anyways.
Oh, okay. We got that worked out.
That's okay. Let me just, okay. So, I thank you so much for pointing this out, because homelessness, mental health, that all connects to healthcare. We want to fund more additions to detox beds and residential treatment beds in our areas throughout the province, including Grey Bruce. Now, on the other side of that, we need to be able to help these people, right? And it's great to offer them treatment spaces and things like that, but they need to be housed first and have an address. So we are focusing on a housing first solution in order to make sure that people have the housing they need. So we are actually, if I get the number here in front of me, I believe it was 300,000. We want to build or purchase 300,000 permanently affordable homes and make them not just profit, it's co-op housing, it's municipal nonprofit housing, things like that, which the municipalities have started to do, which is great, but shouldn't be on municipalities' back. We need the province to fund that, and the ONDP is proposing to take the funding for homelessness and housing off the backs of municipalities and onto the province's books. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Matthew?
Yeah, it's a situation where we're dealing with people who have fallen through the cracks, and how do we help those people? How do we reach out and give them a spot where they want to go, that's a safe spot, and how we tick all those boxes? And it's a dealing with addiction, and that drive to do the one thing more than what is obviously what is good for them, and that the problem, right? Like you were talking about drug addiction, we're talking about heroin, and the fact that is more important than anything else to them is it's sad, for one, and it's how do we help that person? Well, we have to give them hope. And how do we do that? Well, we keep them safe, one, and then, we try to get them to turn the corner. But it's a frustrating situation, and the Green Party, addiction and substance use challenges impact all of us either directly or through friends and loved ones. We need to address addictions challenges with care, not with harsh penalties. Unfortunately, we have a provincial government that sees addictions as something that should be politicized, policed, and criminalized, which only makes things worse and less safe, both for the suffering and those in their community. Thank you.
And Ian.
Yeah, so we've got a list a mile long on things that we will do for people who have addictions and the homeless and so on. But your question is, what about here in rural communities? And I'm proud to say that our party has a special commission called the Northern and Rural Commission, and that has meant that all of our policy has been looked at through the lens of what do we need to do to address the differences between rural Ontario and northern Ontario and urban Ontario. So I can't say that there's a promise to build something in the next year in Huron-Bruce, but it's certainly our intent that all of these services need to be available to all Ontarians, not just urban Ontarians, but Ontarians in southwestern Ontario, in eastern Ontario, in northern Ontario, all across the province. Everyone will have a primary care team that they are assigned to, that they have access to. Everybody will have at least that, and that will be an advent into the mental health system. Obviously, we also need the addiction and resources to reach out to people who are not going to come into our services the normal way. So we'll commit to working towards getting them in rural Ontario, and that's the best I can do for now.
Thank you, Ian. I think we'll move into concluding remarks, and we'll offer each candidate an opportunity, if they wish, for some concluding remarks. But as moderator, I have some remarks I'd like to make too. I happen to also chair a small rural and local hospital committee for the Ontario Health Coalition. That's a province-wide committee. Last summer, well, spring into summer, I was on a tour of the province to rural areas all over, way up north, Thunder Bay and north of there, and over in near Ottawa, and there were so many communities. And we asked people to come in and just talk with us, give us submission. What are your concerns as a rural Ontarian? Everywhere we went, we ended up hearing the phrase, rural Ontario doesn't seem to matter. Everybody felt they've been left with the dirty end of the stick. And I mean, we heard stories from women, well, I guess I'm trying to think of the community, quite a ways up. They have to drive 4 hours to the nearest birthing unit. Now, I don't know about you ladies. My children would have been born on the side of the road. And if that's not both a government issue and a women's issue, you tell me what is. There are communities that have, where all the family doctors have quit because the working conditions for them were so bad. I talked to a woman up near Halliburton who couldn't get a family doctor. She's 82, and she has to drive 3.5 hours to see her doctor in Toronto every time she has an appointment, and she said she tries to avoid calling for appointments. I talked to a woman who was recently widowed, not too far from here, who was, experiencing problems accessing cataract surgery and ended up accumulating medical debt, which is a story we hear far too often in Ontario. We didn't grow up with medical debt. We went to the doctor when we needed it. And so rural Ontario is suffering. They continue to suffer. And, well, many of them are conservative ridings. I guess people will have to make their own decisions. But I just wanted to share that just for some perspective. I also would like to take an opportunity to thank the municipality of Brockton for providing this facility for us tonight, and in such a beautiful location. That being the case, concluding remarks. I think Ian, you spoke last. Bruce, do you want to take a turn with concluding remarks? Or you can pass, it's up to you.
Huh?
Yeah, it's up to you.
Okay. Healthcare and education choice for children, parents, and patients. The virus crisis has now exposed the fact that our taxpayer-funded bureaucracy and essential public services are not fundamentally sound, as it is built upon a flawed concept that started with socialist, ideological, collectivist thinking, which has now evolved into a system that does not deliver the service you pay. Yet, everyone still pays dearly. So the unsustainable approach is both statistically and scientifically leading to a crisis and deficit, a bureaucratic crisis with a democratic deficit, both of which are set to collide in catastrophic ways for a governmental event unseen by generations. Thus, we of the Ontario Alliance now look to allowing free enterprise with choice and competition for a change, I'm not very good at reading, I guess, and chance at a better care and service for Ontarians, both in healthcare and children, so children, parents, and patients can have the best of both worlds today for stronger families, safer communities, and secure streets and borders for tomorrow in Ontario. A fair share healthcare, which opens up options for non-essential healthcare past the basic essential services guaranteed to all citizens, allows cooperatives into alternative healthcare to expand and grow past the tried and true essential system that will remain funded by government fully. Similarly, allowing an alternative educational choice for a third way allows us to continue government funding and support for the public and separate school systems while giving citizens a choice to decide where their children now can go just outside the old tried true way to fall in line with the 1999 findings of the Human Rights Committee of the United Nations that found the current governmental arrangement discriminatory. Thanks.
Thank you, Bruce. Nick, would you care to offer some concluding remarks?
Yep.
I thought you would.
You know, I'll always go for it. Okay. Tonight, we've heard a lot about the healthcare crisis, and we have seen it, everyone in this room, we have seen that our healthcare system is in crisis. As a teacher in my job every day, I've seen the real effects of the healthcare crisis on families and on students. And this really isn't just a policy issue. It's about people's lives. Under the current government, our hospitals are underfunded, our ERs are closing, and more Ontarians are left without a family doctor. It's 2.5 million people right now, but by 2026, it is supposed to be up to I believe 4.5. And before that, we have the Ontario Liberals. While they're in power, they didn't really do enough to protect our healthcare system out either. Just recently, in the last year, Bonnie Crombie said they spent too much on healthcare when they were in power. When my aunt was a nurse at the Clinton ER, they cut 1,600 nurses' jobs in the province of Ontario. And they limited their wage increases by legislation. We've heard a lot of promises, but the reality is both of those parties failed us when it comes to healthcare. We, the Ontario NDP, we have a real plan. We'll hire more doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers. We'll restore proper funding to our hospitals and keep rural emergency rooms open. And I will make sure that the people of Huron-Bruce don't have to fear for their health because they can't get the care when they need it. I'll fight to ensure healthcare remains public for everyone, not just for those who can afford it. This campaign is about real people, your issues. It's about your families, your neighbors, and your communities. I've spent my career standing up for students and families, and now I'm ready to stand up for all of you at Queen's Park. If you want an MPP who listens, who shows up, who understands the struggles we face, and won't stop until we fix this healthcare crisis, I'm asking for your support. Together, we can build an Ontario that works for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Oh, Matthew, sorry. I should have introduced you. Yes, Matthew.
Thank you again for everyone for coming. Hopefully we've given you something that has depth and is genuine. We need a balanced, cost-effective, transparent approach to government. We need the right combination of doctors, nurses, and PSWs to make our hospitals run smoothly, and we need to create a healthy environment for hospital staff to be able to properly take care of their patients. We need smart, benevolent, elected members of parliament, not knee-jerk reactionaries. My party refuses to cater to right-wing policy. The decision to vote green is an important one. Affordable housing, commitment to protect farmland, quality health care, and understanding that no matter how nice your cottage is, without clean air and water, life isn't that great. Please become involved in the decisions made with your tax dollars. Bright ideas and clear thoughts are always in high demand. Again, thank you for coming out and safe ride home.
Thank you, Matthew. And Ian?
Well, also, thank you to the people who organized this debate again, and thank you to all of you for coming out and listening. You have heard a lot of interesting thoughts tonight, great ideas for how we can make healthcare better. I think that if this government truly wanted a quality healthcare system, they could have delivered it, but they're more interested in finding profit centers and thinking like corporate people than they are in looking after your health. So I think the fundamental idea, I would say, is don't be snowed by the business types, okay? Your healthcare is not a consumer good. Your healthcare is a human right, and you are entitled to it. Our party has made healthcare its top priority. Getting a doctor or primary care to every one of you in the province and getting it to you in your own community. We have two other priorities which tie into that. Affordability and housing. Both are at the crisis level in our province today. And both of those tie into healthcare because if you don't have a place to live or if you are struggling just to survive, how are you going to access the healthcare you need? So all of these three relate to the primary idea that you should be happy, healthy, and not be worrying about finding a place to live, not be worrying whether you're going to have enough to eat. All of those are priorities. I believe that we can find the money, as Nick said, we can find the money, and those are important priorities. Those are worth finding money for. I don't think mega spas, tunnels, and beer in the corner store a year early, I don't think those are high priorities. Healthcare, affordability, and housing, that's what we're looking, that's what we will deliver. Please vote Ian Burbidge on February 27th.
Thank you. It's interesting that when this election was called, it was not anticipated that healthcare would be discussed much at all. There are a lot of other distractions, other issues that are being brought forward. It's interesting that the Conservative candidates will not come to these meetings because when you're the incumbent, you have the advantage and disadvantage of running on your record. Are you better off today than 7 years ago? Do you have better health care now than you had then? Think about that, and I know what my answer is. So I guess our request to you is go forth and vote, and hopefully you will take some of this information that you've heard tonight and as you consider how you're going to vote. Thank you very much.
Treated as such. On this journey, I've met caregivers and their loved ones who share the very same hopes and dreams most people have. To be holistically healthy, to prosper in life, and to see dreams come true. that for some people, living life is complicated by systemic barriers that are simply dehumanizing. Earlier this year, my wife and I were reminded of this reality as we tried to find a daycare provider for our daughter. Now, finding daycare is a struggle as it is. For parents with children with disabilities, there's an extra complexity to the whole process. At first, we were advised that there was a spot for her, and after a tour of the place, we liked it and applied. However, only days later, we were advised that Sailor could not take up the available spot because of her disability. Many caregivers with whom I spoke shared versions of this incident and noted that concern for the well-being of our loved ones should be a priority and not an inconveniencing afterthought. After all, we're all created equal. I'm a black man struggling with clinical depression. The second theme is that there is a crisis in black mental health, and we need to acknowledge it. The conversations I had about mental health featured acknowledgement of some level of crisis in our collective mental health as black caregivers. Invariably, I also learned that this crisis is something of an elephant in the black room. Good evening, thank you. From my own experience on this journey, it's clear to me that the best way forward is by first acknowledging that there is a crisis in our mental health. Thankfully, there are professionals in our community who can help us through this process. I've had the privilege of meeting some of them. Finally, I've been reminded that black is beautiful. While in Nova Scotia, in one of Canada's oldest black settlements, the Gibson family walked me through a graveyard in their community. When I noticed that one woman had died in 1888, I shared with the group that she died just 4 years after the partition of Africa. This is when white European men drew imaginary border lines to break up the continent. As we exchanged reflections on the enslavement and colonization of our people, I was reminded that black people's contributions to life make this world more beautiful, notwithstanding the oppression often inflicted on us.
Heading back to the airport right now from Nova Scotia back to London, Ontario. Being in Nova Scotia and being welcomed into people's homes, I somewhat felt at home because of the depth of connection that we felt with each other, both because we have similar experiences of being black, but also living with the reality of a loved one born with or living with an exceptionality. So I feel like I belong in a deeper way. It's heartwarming. It's heartwarming to belong.
This is the beautiful world, a village that I had discovered, of people like me, caring for loved ones, living with exceptionalities. As I conclude this journey, it only feels like the beginning of something special. So I look forward to reconnecting with the people I've met from coast to coast, and to introducing my daughter to this village I've discovered, and for her to experience Ubuntu. I am because we are.
The following program was provided by a valued member of our local community. Rogers TV is proud to support local producers and share local voices, ideas, and opinions. For more information, please visit our website. Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
For me, the end was just the beginning. I felt I must come. If I did not come at once, it would be too late. And these places that are watered with the best blood of Canada might only be names and memories. I see it in the soldiers, the grief I know so intimately. And I will not abandon these men to it. The isolation wears on me. Slowly, the silence takes over, as if my heart has given out of air. I cannot talk. I can only paint.
For more than 2 years, Mary Ryder Hamilton painted the battlefields of the First World War, creating an unforgettable visual record of service and sacrifices at immense personal cost.
There's a center back up in front. There's a shot off a leg right in front of the net. Backhand shot, scores! Down the blue. Campbell's got some room. Campbell's got Barfoot with him. There's
what a shot!
What a shot! There you see him working his way in front, and he got it when he got a stick on it. Zane Smith stayed with it, got the second shot on goal.
The goaltender stick and deflected up and into the net.
It wasn't even a hard shot. He just sort of little.
As I looked upon the battlefield in front of me, a German star shell lit up the desolate landscape. I watched as a bullet smashed through the bridge of my nose and left me to the mercy of the darkness. I worried I would be dependent on others for the rest of my life. But Sir Arthur Pearson and the staff of St. Dunstan's had other plans. With their help, I knew I could be self-reliant, and I wanted to bring this idea home to Canada. I wanted Canadians to know that we could hold jobs, that we could contribute, that regardless of sight, all would read, that we, the blind, would shape our own lives, our own destiny.
Blinded by a sniper's bullet in 1915, Edwin A. Baker went on to co-found the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, shaping a path forward for the blind across Canada for generations to come.
Looking for your favorite home renovation shows?
They know what they want. They don't know where to find it.
We do.
Look right here. Only HGTV has all new seasons of Celebrity IOU. The Flipping O Mooses.
Blowing away the competition.
Divided by Design. Hometown.
Yeah, baby!
My Lottery Dream Home.
I'm gonna get you your dream house here.
And more.
Oh my goodness!
You like that? Woo! Watch them all only on HGTV. Get the latest on Rogers Xfinity.
We invite you to play What's My Line?
Welcome, Mrs. Baker. Those folks over there need to guess your extraordinary occupation.
Are you an entertainer, Mrs. Baker? Yes.
Do people come to watch you, perform?
Yes. Do you travel for work? Yes, I do. Do you ever wear a special type of costume? Yes.
Is your job, physical?
Yes, indeed.
Are you a member of a team?
Yes. Are you a professional baseball player? Yes, I am.
Created during the Second World War, the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League included 68 Canadians. One of its brightest stars was my mother, Saskatchewan's Mary Bonnie Baker, a pioneer for women in sports.
This is a perfectly healthy child. What's unhealthy are birth alerts, a racist practice that may stop this Indigenous mother from going home with her newborn. Become an ally. Rise above racism in healthcare.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, addicts of all ages, welcome to Canadian Sober, eh? I'm your host and resident alcoholic, Dougie Fresh. So glad you are here with us today because I have one of my favorite people in recovery. I have been wanting to get this Southern Belle on television, on a podcast, on screen, anywhere for quite a while. This girl introduced me to a lot of people who have a very special place in my heart today. And I have not seen her or heard her voice in a very long time. And I called her today and we had a lovely conversation. And she is here with all of us tonight. Please give a big Canadian Sober welcome to or Daphne, however she prefers. How you doing today?
Hey, Doug, I am great. How are you, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. I'm so blessed you're here today. Please share with the world, share with whoever is going to be watching this, share with the people at home eating their popcorn who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience, strength, and hope, please.
Okay, well, first off, thank you for giving me a chance to partake in my recovery today. I am Daphne. I am a grateful, recovering alcoholic. So, a little bit of backstory. And for those of you who do not know me, I get sidetracked very easily. So I have some little clip notes to keep me hopefully on track. So I am originally from Alabama. I had my biological father. I never knew him. He was an alcoholic and he died at age 54. I am like 1 month away from turning 52, which is extremely terrifying knowing that he died at such an early age. I was adopted by my mom's husband when I was 5. He would drink here and there. It was, alcohol just was not a big thing in our lives. My mom, she would drink a little, only like when I would push her when I was in active addiction. Other than that, she's never smoked, never really drank, would never pick up a drug. So, you kind of wonder, is it hereditary? I've done so many studies over the years since I've gotten sober in 6.5 years. I have a biological father that's an alcoholic. I was never around him. I have a 27-year-old addict alcoholic child. So, I at the end of the day, I can't say which came first, the chicken or the egg, but I know that this is real and it got me good. So, let's see. When I was little, I would drink like my grandfather's Miller ponies, and I thought I was something special getting a little, I don't know if anybody, I'm showing my age, like they were this big, and he used to like sneak me little drinks, and that was my very first taste of alcohol, and I'm surely not blaming it on my grandfather. But I just liked it, but I was such a little girl. So fast forward, into high school and college, I smoked weed, I tripped on acid, anything that was offered to me, I would take it. I never was one that sought it out. I hung out with people that had it, so that's a lie. I guess I did, but I never gave money for it. So I always had the good friends that had all of that stuff. So, and again, it's just something that I did in high school and college, like a normal person. But I did not know what was lying underneath that. And so let's see, I got married at age 20. I got pregnant when I was 21. And the day that I found out I was pregnant, I quit smoking. And at that time, I didn't drink a whole lot, but I quit drinking. So fast forward again, I would say my son was in first grade. Long story short, because I like to talk, I started drinking a glass of wine at night to help me sleep. I still to this day have insomnia, and he's 31. So the alcohol did not help, but I loved it. And so, a couple of glasses over time became a bottle a night. Then 1 bottle turned into 2. And so I held out on about 2.5 bottles for a few years. So then fast forward again, I moved to the beach, and there's not a lot to do at the beach but drink. At least it wasn't for me. At least I always can find those friends, you know. I'm so great at finding those people. Birds of a feather flock together, you know. So I was homeschooling my kids at the time. So I was a present mom most of the day. But I would get through with school really fast. I'm like, oh, we can't wait till tomorrow. Like, we got lunch to go drink, you know. So it started moving into lunchtime. So fast forward, it goes from lunch to breakfast or brunch. And then I was always looking for, you know, any excuse to get out and drink. But the thing is my friends drank differently than me. Like, they knew when to stop. They didn't get in the car when they were like so intoxicated like I would. But I never, ever, ever wanted the party to end. So the brunch went on for a little bit longer. And it was my son's senior year, and I always reference him because I can go with the time easier. It was the senior year of high school, and I had been out drinking the night before, which again, I would start around 11 and finish when I passed out. Or I went to sleep rather, but I really passed out. But I always called it going to sleep. And I was a blackout drinker, which I did not even know what a blackout drinker was. I just thought I had a really bad memory. And I swear to God, I'm not kidding you. It was until I was in treatment and they said something about blackout. I was like, what is that? Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And then I was like, holy crap. Like, that is what I have experienced for about a decade. Never knew it. I always blamed it on my memory. My husband was like, yeah, I don't know about that. But I was sticking to it because I really, truly thought that's what it was. So one day, his senior year, I woke up and he didn't do anything. I woke up, had a hangover, and I was like, okay, I don't know what this hair of the dog thing is, but I'm going to try it. So everyone was still asleep. I went into the laundry room and was doing laundry, and I snuck out the back, went to our outside fridge because I never wanted my kids, I never had alcohol in the house, never. And so I would keep it all in the outside fridge. So I went out there, got one of my husband's Coronas, went back into the laundry room, shut the door, and was chugging it. And I was like, this might work. So I went and grabbed another one. Felt great. But what I really felt was a bit of that buzz coming back. And I was like, I like this. So it was for about the next, I'd say 9 years, I drank every morning. And towards the end, it got to where I was having coffee with my husband. He thought I was having coffee, but in my coffee cup was vodka. And I was always the one like, let me go get us a refill. Let me go get some more. And he had asked me to get help over the years. And I was like, I've got this, like I've got it. But the thing was, is I did not have it. And he traveled a lot for work. And therefore he didn't know, he knew it was bad, but he did not know that I was drinking in the morning. And I would go, like when he was out of town, I would go days. I would like not even want to talk to him. I would like text him because I knew if he heard my voice that he would know that I was drunk. And that's when I would really go off the rails, was when he would go out of town. So let's see. The whole saying, wherever you are, there you are. So I moved to Texas after thinking that if I left the beach, it might be better for me. Well, I moved to Texas. I joined a gym that served alcohol. And I was like, well, hell yeah, I'm at home now. So I enjoyed that for 3 months. I decided to go to Costco one day. I get popped with a DUI. That was the first one that I'd ever gotten in my life. First time I've ever been arrested. And it is nothing but by the grace of God. I have no idea how I never got one, much less hurt somebody. And I will tell you, had I ever harmed somebody, I would have totally taken my life because I could not have lived with that. So once I got the DUI, I was like, well, how the hell am I supposed to get my alcohol now? Because I can't drive because I'm always drinking. Like I would from the time my eyes opened to the time I fell asleep, I was intoxicated. I would even wake up in the middle of the night to drink, to go back to sleep. So I started ordering in alcohol. I was having it delivered. And one morning, my husband said, like, who's here? And I'm like, oh, it's Whole Foods bringing our groceries. I would always, they weren't bringing groceries. I didn't have to say what all was in there. So I did a lot of lying by omission. I never, if I was asked boldface, to this day, I don't lie about anything. Like, I just tell like it is because I have nothing to hide. And if I have to hide it, then I know I shouldn't be doing it. But I did definitely lie by omission. So I'm like, oh, it's just, it's my drinks, whatever. Anyway, I'm sorry, I know, gotta go. So I have it all delivered. And eventually I'm like, I gotta get out of the house. I can't keep doing this. So one day, after 3 months of having my DUI, I was still, I'd been celebrating Cinco de Mayo all this time. And guys, so I got my DUI because I've been drinking tequila straight. Anyway, I was like, okay, I drank everything in the house, which to my recollection was 3 bottles of wine, all of my husband's beer. I ate all the edibles that I could find. There was nothing left. And so I was like, well, this sucks. Like, what am I going to do now? Then it became a brownout. So I was here and there. I was missing a little bit, but I remembered a little bit. The next thing I know, I am in detox. So apparently I went and sat in his lap at his desk and was crying, begging for help. And I swore that I was ready this time. He called around, found a detox center. I was there for 6 days because my hallucinations were so bad. They told him it would probably be 2, possibly 3. Ended up being 6. While I was there, I found out they had a treatment center. So I was like, I want to go. So I went for 90 days. And while I was there, I learned a lot about myself. I learned about, just a lot. And I learned how to live. After 30 days, I was ready to blow that place. I was like, nope, I'm done. I'm done. I got to go. I can't do this anymore. But that's when the work really started, was those next 60 days, because I would not have known how to live. So fast forward again, I get out of detox and I'm like, you know what? I've got to drink. I've got to do my recovery like I did my drinking, which for me was every moment that I was awake. So soon after that, I'm in every AA meeting that there is. I'm going to 3 and 4 a day. I'm doing every bit of the service work that I possibly could do because I did not want to go back to that day that I went away. Because when I left treatment, my husband let me know, and I did not know this, that had he not been there, I had his gun and it was going into my mouth. I did not know any of this until I got home. So therefore is why I bust my ass to stay sober every single day. COVID hits, I go back to school, all virtual, and I become a sober companion, recovery coach, trained in relapse prevention. And that's when I met you and started chairing all those meetings for, I think it was like 19 months that we had those going. And it's totally life-changing. And today I have a life that I never thought was possible. I never imagined waking up and not drinking. I never imagined going out to dinner and not ordering. I'm that person that used to look at people and going, oh my God, why are they drinking water? And now sometimes I'm like, I wonder if they have a problem. Why are they drinking alcohol? But my life today is like nothing that I could ever imagine. And I remember back in the day, my mom would say, wanting me to stop. She's like, just don't buy it. And then you won't drink. And I'm like, lady, you do not understand how this works. Like, it is not that easy. And so today is, I don't know how many days, but it's a little over 6.5 years. And the people that I have met, you in particular, like the connections that we made through all of our Zoom meetings and in the recovery on our journey is like nothing I could have ever imagined. I never wanted to have a sober friend. What the hell would I want a friend that didn't drink? And today I do not have one person other than maybe people that I'm related to that I talk to. Not that I'm judging them, but I don't hang out with anybody that's not out of the rooms. And my closest friends today, as we speak, are from Instagram. And people like you. And I'm just so grateful. And I am so grateful that I got to see you and that I got to be here with you. But don't be scared. Be scared of staying the same. And that's it in a nutshell.
Thanks so much, Daph. I really appreciate that. You speak from the heart. I know it was a short time period to get all that in. Maybe when Rogers gives me my hour show, and Deanne can work on that. We'll get you back on, and you can share a bit more. You mentioned something right at the end there that is so perfect, because I was thinking, I have some questions written down I wanted to ask you, and the last thing you basically mentioned was the first question I actually wanted to ask you, and it was, with social media and all of this stuff out there, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, what's the other one? Can't remember what the other one is.
Snapchat.
Yeah. Like, would you, seeing all this stuff, do you think it's like the Instagram influencers, do you think it's helpful or harmful?
Well, I think, in moderation. Let's go with that. That is one of the many things that was on my 10 pages of notes that I skipped over. I think if you use it the way that it is meant to be, but with people like us, it's very difficult because we are all or nothing. And for me, coming into it, getting into Instagram, recovering out loud, it was a great tool. However, I got to do it 100%, 110%. And it was kind of like a snowball. I relied on it and I was too involved. Like, I had to post 3 times a day. I had to do this and I had to do that. And I'm chairing meetings and I'm going to meetings. And, I think it could be a tremendous tool. And I wish to God I had known. I don't know. I think everything happens for a reason, because if I did know that there was a recovery side to Instagram, that I probably would have thought those people were crazy. And I can't say that it would have helped me, but for the sober curious, absolutely. And I've kind of stepped back because I've had a lot of health issues and a lot going on lately. And I haven't been on Instagram probably like 2 months, which I am going to get on there very soon. However, it just kind of started to consume me. And I did not want that to be my identity. But for those, but it can be such a useful tool. Mm-hmm. All of those platforms, I personally think, if it's used the right way. But I just dove head in, and that's the way I do everything. It's like I can't do one thing 100%. I'm doing 20 things like 2%, and I don't like that. And so I would say my suggestion would be totally get into it. Like, check it out. If anything, it's going to teach you not to drink. It's going to not want you to drink. It will ruin drinking for you. So if you're on the fence about it, I would say go for it, but in moderation. And again,
yeah, because
what is moderation?
Right. And like, I believe it's a tremendous tool. I believe that, you go on there, you can connect with people, you can share stories, similar stories, things like that. People share a lot of positive stuff on there, but there's the odd one where I see somebody share something and I'm thinking to myself, it's really hard for me not to comment or not to say something, because I'm like I don't necessarily maybe agree with that, or them giving advice, and stuff like that. So it's really hard. I think it really is I think a tremendous tool to use, but I think it's somewhat dangerous in a sense of people giving out false information and things like that. What do you think?
I completely agree. And here I am with they're not degrees, they're certifications, but still, I did a lot of studying to get to those. I still, me personally, don't get on there and preach. Everything I talk about is my personal experience. And I put my mugshot up there. It is what it is. I am not embarrassed, because you know what? I'd rather have a mugshot than a glamour shot. Not today, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't forget where I came from. I cannot forget my last drunk.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to try to mislead anybody. Everything that I say is my personal experience. And if you come to me for sober coaching, then we'll talk deeper. But as far as preaching goes, that is not me, because I have seen so much out there, and I'm just like you. I'm like, nope, you just keep on scrolling. It's not your business. You stay the hell out of it. Just keep on going. and like, I'm starting to sweat. I swear to God, I'm like getting hot talking about it, because that it bothers me. It bothers me a lot, because and people are so excited that they, it's like they found God. They just got to tell the world, but it's got to be the truth. And what works for you doesn't work for me. What works for me doesn't work for them. But it's that foundation, and it's got to be, it's got to be black or white. You can't be in that gray area trying to tell people stuff, because God forbid, I don't want to get somebody killed. I don't even know, like a little over a year ago, if you knew this, like I lost my little sister to fentanyl. She was 19.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But as a sister, I still didn't preach to her. You know what I mean? Like you come to me, I'm going to help you, but I don't get on there to preach, and that's just not who I am. So I 100% agree with everything that you just said.
Yeah. Which I'm sorry to hear about your sister. It's crazy up here in Canada. I'm just imagining what it's like all around the world. But it leads into my next question, which you kind of mentioned in that what you just said here was, what works for somebody might not work for somebody else. I shared something on Facebook and Instagram the other day, and it gathered a lot of attention and a lot of people questioning, stuff on there. And I had put in there that I wasn't judging anybody's recovery. I just wanted to know what the general consensus was. Because I heard on one of our Canadian news programs, Breakfast Television, that the non-alcoholic industry is going to be pulling in around 45. I think they said $1 million. They're expected $45 million in 2025. To mocktail or not to mocktail? What is Daphne's answer?
Daphne does not. And let me tell you why. Because I don't pretend anything. If you see me with a glass of wine in my hand, you better run for the hills, because it's going to be alcohol. I do not pretend or fake anything. And that to me is a slippery slope. To each their own. Now, you know what? I think, again, this is my opinion. If you are sober curious, say for instance, he doesn't even drink enough to even drink non-alcoholic. But my mind just went completely, just went blank. Jesus, where was I? Oh, hello, here I am. Okay, going back. If that is you, if you're sober curious, if you are not me or you, I think those are okay. But for my opinion, for the true alcoholic, I don't think it's a good idea. I do not think it's a good idea. It's not a good idea for Daphne. Maybe for Doug, it's not for me.
Yeah.
I don't want that association. I don't want anything that even remotely reminds me of that last day, from what I remember of that last day. And then hearing my husband fill in those gaps, I just can't go back there. And I'm not going to romanticize that drink. And I think for me, that's where it would take me. And if it works for someone else and it keeps them from drinking, then I applaud them. That is not for me. And I will not do it. Let me go back. I had my first mocktail about 4 months ago or 3 months ago. I did not order it. There was actually a friend of ours on Instagram that was in town. And when I got to the restaurant, she had ordered it. She's like, you just got to try it. It's so good. It wasn't on the menu. It's something that she told them to mix together. And I was like, just try it. It had been so over 6 years before I tried one thing.
Wow.
It was different because all I drink is water. I drink coffee. Yeah. And today there was actual coffee in my coffee cup. But that's it. That's all I drink. That's all I've drank for years. And but I did have it. But will I go out and order it? No, I won't. Yeah. And I don't want someone to look at me and say, oh my God, like, that might know me and they're like, she's drinking. I don't want that.
Yeah. My sponsor says if it smells like beer, tastes like beer, and looks like beer, don't put it in your hand. But that's not what I want to ask you this question here, because I know it's personal to your heart, and I want to finish off the program like this. I I know you, I'm not going to mention who because I don't know if you want them mentioned, but I'm going to say there's somebody close in your life, that I know over the course of, stuff that you've worried about, but they've gathered some traction and they're sober today. How blessed do you feel that is where it is today?
Oh my God. Oh man, you just have no idea. And I will tell them, it is my 27-year-old daughter. I am so grateful. She is an addict alcoholic. She had 2 DUIs by the time before her 21st birthday. I believe she's been to detox 3 times, 3 rehabs. None of that worked. It doesn't work until you want it to work. And after her last automobile accident that landed her in the hospital, the last 2 vehicles she has totaled. One, when she was in the hospital, she has a metal plate in her arm now and a couple of screws. The last one, like God's hand was over that child. She flipped her car twice, landed upside down, walked away. Not even a broken fingernail. And I'm like, girl, you have more lives than a cat. And I don't know if there's going to be another chance. And this is the most peace that I've had with her. She's 27. She's about to be 28 next month. The most peace since she turned 15. Her first suicide attempt was at 15. So I've dealt with so much over the years. And underlying PTSD, I have PTSD. My husband has it. That's why my phone's off a lot. It's the rings, the dings. It just makes my heart stop when literally it will skip a beat. It's still to this day, just because I'm waiting on that next phone call.
Yeah.
But praise God, it's all good today. So thank you so much for asking.
I'm happy. I'm happy you're happy, and maybe she'll be the next guest on Canadian Sober somewhere down the line. I'm so blessed that you were here today, Daph, to share your experience, strength, and hope with us. Peace and love to you and your family. Peace and love to you sitting at home watching. Please join us again next week for another amazing episode of Canadian Sober. Please come back and hope you enjoyed our Southern Belle today. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details. Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Hi, I'm Carol Merton, host of HealthLink on Rogers TV. HealthLink connects home, community, and healthcare with interesting topics and speakers about your health and your community.
This is a brain in urgent need of mental health care. But because 3 out of every 4 Indigenous people experience racism in healthcare, she may not get the help she needs. Become an ally. Rise above racism in healthcare.